Hello there. Welcome back to my channel. In this video, I want to look at a common test of March 2022. So we are going to look at a question paper from the province of KwaZulu-Natal. So we are going to start on our first question on that question paper that is on multiple choice questions. That is question one, and we can take note that our question one is compulsory. So 1.1 reads, various options are provided as possible answers to the following questions. Choose the correct answer and write only the letter A to D next to the question number. That is our 1.1. You are given how to present in your answer book. So moving to our first question, these are the amount of money that a business has available for use for its day-to-day operations is called. You are given different responses, but you see that the correct response that we have is working capital. So basically, working capital is the amount of money that a business has available to use for its day-to-day operation. So working capital, it shows short-term liquid assets available after short-term liabilities have been paid off. So when you are calculating working capital, you use the formula working capital. Well, basically, this is what we have in terms of calculating our working capital, whereby you say working capital is equal to our current assets minus our current liabilities. So basically, that's what we have. Then we go to the second part of our question, which is the records that are kept to measure a country's total production, income, and expenditure are called the national accounts. So we are saying national accounts, they show total production and also income and expenditure. So basically, this is what we did. And this total production is for the whole country. So they are recorded in national accounts. So moving on to the next question, 1.1.3, an economic system where economic questions about scarcity are answered by the state is known as dash economy. So the key that we have there is that the questions are being answered by the state. And we know that when the questions are being answered by the states, it becomes a centrally planned. So we have centrally planned economy at A. So A becomes the correct response that we have. Then moving on at 1.1.4, the sector that processes natural resources into final products is called the dash sector. So this is the secondary sector. Secondary sector is the one that converts our raw materials into final or finished products. So we have a secondary D. So moving on to 1.1.5. A company that is wholly or partially owned and managed by the government is called A. We have got cross cooperation, a monopoly, private enterprise, a parastatal. So we'd see that parastatal is the correct response. So our section is 10 marks, each question with 2 marks. So basically, this is what we have. Move on to the next section, whereby we got matching words. It reads, choose a description from column B that matches the item column A. Write only the letter A to G next to the question number, that is 1.2.1 to 1.2.6 in the answer. So you're given terms that are given in column A that you have to make with explanations that you are given in column B. So the first term that we have is economic goods. And we know that economic goods, when we have an economic good, it's a product or service which can command a price when sold. So if you look with our explanation that we are given in column B, if you go to B, it reads resources that are scarce, which people are willing to pay for. So we have B as the correct response. And moving on to the next, we've got 1.2.2, open economy. But you know that when it's now an open economy, it's an economy that engages in trade with other countries. In other words, they export and import. So if you go to our response in column B, you see that our responses are ranging from A to G. So you can choose the correct response that we have there. But if you go to D, it's an environment where imports and exports can freely take place. So we have D as correct response for open economy. We go to 1.2.3, mass production, and we know that when there's mass production, there is production in large quantities. So personally, we also check which is the correct response that we have. So if you go to F, manufacturing of similar products in large quantities using machines in a factory. So we have F as the correct response. Then we 1.2.4, genetic operation. So genetic operations basically is collection of raw materials that can return to nature what it has taken from it. So we have A, having that explanation. So A is the correct response. Then we've got informal sector. Remember, we've got formal sector and informal sector. So basically, when we are talking about informal sector, we know that this is a sector that is not regulated when it's informal. So if you go to G, say all economic activities that are not officially regulated by the by government. So we have G, there's the correct response. So when we go to the next one is scarcity. Scarcity, when there's scarcity, obviously there is an association with shortage. So we try to see which is the correct response. We go to see the economic problem of unlimited needs and wants, but limited resources. So we have got limited resources, but the needs are unlimited. So the resources that we have cannot meet the needs and wants. So that becomes scarcity. So we have C as the correct response. So I'm moving on to the next section, which is now going to be our 1.3, which is reads give one term for each of the following descriptions, like only the term next to the question number, and it's 1.3.1 to 1.3.4 in the answer. Acronyms and abbreviations will not be accepted. So the first one is saying the payment that the owner of labor get in exchange for the use of their physical and mental capacity. So the payment, obviously, that we get from providing labor as workers is obviously in the form of wages and salaries. Wages or salaries. So we can just indicate here that we have wages. So we have wages or salaries. So I'm moving on to the second part, saying the total market value of all final goods and services produced within the borders of a country in a certain period of time. And obviously, this is the gross domestic product that is produced within the borders of the country. So we have gross domestic product. So moving on to the next part is saying the selling of assets owned by the government to the private sector. The selling of assets owned by the government to the private sector. Obviously, there is a movement from government ownership to private ownership. So obviously, this is a privatization. So on the last part is saying collection of raw materials that cannot return to nature what it has taken from it. So basically, this now becomes exploitative operations. Exploitative operations becomes the correct response. So we are now moving on to our next question, which is now going to be our question 2. So moving on to our section B, we please answer any one question in this section. So you have to answer one question between question 2 and 3. And our question 2 is on macroeconomics. It requires us to spend on average 30 minutes and it has 40 marks. So the question reads answer the following questions, whereby the first one, 2.1.1 marks. So we know that sources of government revenue is obviously through our taxation, whereby we have got the personal income tax, we have value-added tax, excise duties, corporate income tax, and also we have got fuel levy. But if we go back to our question, we see that our question only needs 2 sources. So we can take note of that. Then second part says, why is income from exports regarded as an injection? Why is income from exports regarded as an injection? Because obviously it's going to increase the money that is flowing in the economy. Because as we export, as we sell goods outside the country, we obviously get income from selling those goods. So that income will circulate in the domestic economy. So that becomes an injection. So the colonel other section is because it creates an inflow of money and it increases our total national income. So this is the response that we have. So moving on to the next question, it reads start the diagram below and answer the question that follows. So you are given a diagram where there are two participants that we have, whereby we put households, we put firms, we put arrows moving from households to firm, and then from firm to households. And then a representation with A and B. Beneath that, the first question that we have says, identify the participant that is known as a producer from the diagram. So obviously the producer is going to be the firm which produces the goods, and then the goods are moved to the households, and the households buy those goods. So the movement from households to firms now, it comes in the form of the money as the households buy the goods. So basically, we are saying the producer is the firm. So we have the firm as the producer. Then we go to the next part. Identify any two examples of reflow as represented by letter A in the diagram. Identify any one example of a reflow. So obviously, we are talking about goods. Goods indicate reflow. They indicate reflow. Remember, we put money flow and reflow. The money flow is represented by income, and reflow by goods. So if we refer back to our answer section, you'll see that in the form of reflow, we've got firms supplying goods and services, or we've got households receiving goods and services. So basically, we are saying goods and services indicate the reflow. So this is what we have. Then we'll go to the next part of our question. The next part saying briefly describe the term circular flow model. Briefly describe the term circular flow model. But we know that circular flow model, it shows how money moves through an economy in a constant loop from producers to consumers and back again. So movement of money from producers to consumers and again in the reverse direction describes the circular flow model. So we have an explanation that we have answer section whereby saying circular flow model is a schematic framework that demonstrates the interaction between participants and show the flow of factors of production, goods, services, and money in the economy. So basically, this is the explanation of the circular flow model. So moving on to the next question, saying explain the relationship between the factor markets and goods market. So obviously, the factor market is the one that we see the factors of production. And the goods market now we see that we have been buying and selling of goods. So basically, that is what we've. So the relationship that exists there is that there is a positive relationship between factor markets and the goods market. So very important to see that there is a positive in goods markets. The demand for goods creates the demand for goods creates the demand for factors of production. So we're just saying demand for goods creates the demand for factors of production. That is where the positive relationship is. So we are saying when the demand for goods increases, the demand for factors of production also increases. That's where the positive is coming in. Going on to the next one is saying, why do consumers spend more on non-durable goods? And we know that non-durable goods, those are the goods that are not going to last for a longer period of time. They don't last for a longer period of time. So why do consumers spend more on those goods? So the first point is saying non-durable goods consist mainly of perishable goods that are used on daily basis. So obviously they are used on daily basis, and then after a short period, the consumers need them again. So that's why we are having such a scenario. Then we've got the second point. The second point is lower income earners resort to buying these goods in order to meet their basic needs. So we are saying low income earners do not afford the durable goods because they are more expensive. So they resort to non-durable goods because they are less expensive. Then the next point is saying lack of savings as a result of financial illiteracy confine consumers into spending a lot on non-durable goods. So by a lack of financial illiteracy, we are just trying to say they don't have the knowledge of the significance of buying the durable goods or the benefits that are associated with buying durable goods. So they resort to buying non-durable goods due to ignorance, due to lack of information. So basically, this is what we have for the first point. Then moving on to the next question. We go to the next part whereby we got 2.3, which is started in following table and answer the question that follow. So the question we are given a table whereby At the bottom of the table, we've got expenditure on gross domestic product. Of course, we've got missing information that we have there that we need obviously to enter. Then we are given 2.3.1, which reads identify the method of calculating GDP in the table above. So remember, when calculating GDP, we can use the income approach. We can also use the expenditure approach and also the output approach. So depending on the method used, but if you look at the table that we are given expenditures. So obviously this is going to be the expenditure approach. So we are saying we have the expenditure approach. So expenditure method is the method that we have. Expenditure method. So moving on to the next question. The next question reads, what is represented by A in the table above? Obviously, we have got imports of goods and services, as we are having exports of goods and services just above it. So I believe that we are now having our imports of goods and services, and it is indicated in our answer section. Then we move on to the next part of our question, which is saying, briefly describe the term gross domestic product. So we have described the gross domestic product as the market value of goods and services that are produced within the country's national borders. We have defined that, but we also have a definition that we have in our answer section, which is saying the gross domestic product is the sum total spending that occur within the geographical boundaries of a country in a period of 1 year. So basically, the period that we measure GDP or gross domestic product is usually a 1 year. So we take note of that. Then we move on to the next part. We have got 2.3.4. Why is government spending important for the economy? Why is government spending important for the economy? So this is just government spending basically is the government expenditure. So obviously it is important to build, for example, the infrastructure in the country, because infrastructure in the country is built using the government expenditure. So very important in terms of improving even the standard of living of people in the country. So we go there and try to see the explanations that we have. It reads that provision of public goods and infrastructure improves the standard of living of the citizens and attract business opportunities. So it also attracts business opportunities. And then creation of employment in the public sector stimulates household spending in the economy. So when the government engages in government expenditure, they also obviously employ people as they need workers to install the infrastructure. So obviously they're going to accommodate workers. So it's the workers that are going to work there. They are obviously going to stimulate demand, as they are going to earn income from those job opportunities that will be there. So basically, this is what we have on the second point. So we have 2.3.4. So moving on to the next part of our question. So the next question reads, calculate the expenditure. Calculate the expenditure. That is our B. Show all calculation. So we have a B that we need to calculate. So we refer back to the table. We are going to see that if you say final consumption expenditure by household plus your government expenditure plus your gross fixed capital formation, you're going to get your gross domestic expenditure. So basically, we are saying if we add from here to here, you are going to get this as your answer. 222 plus 784, you get 4,884. And then you add your exports of goods and services, and obviously you subtract your imports here. Remember, here we said this is a representation of imports of goods and services. So if you subtract, if you add 4,684, 4,000, and obviously this is going to be million, is it is represented here by millions. So the answer that we have there that we are going to represent in your answer book will be it is equal to 4,684,784,000 rands. So this one is million. So basically, this is what we have according to that calculation. So moving on to the next question is say, discuss the importance of exports in the economy. So obviously, exports, they are going to have many positive effects. Remember, when we export, we are going to earn income. So, and we are also going to earn foreign currency. So it's going to also increase the foreign currency reserve. Reserves, they are going to increase as we sell, we earn foreign currency. And also, by exporting, it means we are producing more. It means also it reduces unemployment in the local economy. As we produce more, we accommodate more workers, we reduce unemployment. Another macroeconomic problem being solved. So those are some of the positives that we can deduce from exports. So according to our other section, we can try to see what we have in terms of importance of exports. So we've got the first one saying the income from exports serve as the injection that increases the national income. So that becomes the first point. So moving on to the second point, exports and foreign exchange for a country as domestic outputs are sold to other countries. So foreign exchange is the foreign currency that we are talking about. So it's another positive. Then there is an increase in the production of goods to cater for the internal market. So it also facilitates the increase in the production of goods that we produce locally. The next one, job creation, is ensured in the manufacturing sector. Obviously, we have discussed about the creation of jobs. Then lastly, government revenue will increase from taxes on manufacturers' profits. So it also increases our government revenue. So basically, this is the point that on production contribute towards economic growth. So let's start by understanding what are subsidies on production. So subsidies basically is part of our government expenditure. This is money that is given to firms or companies that are facing high cost of production, so that their cost of production is eased or reduced. So this contributes because as we know that if cost of production it decreases, firms will expand their production capacities. So obviously, we are going to have more goods and services being produced in the country because firms are now facing low cost of production. So that's the importance of subsidies. So economic growth, again, is another term which indicates the increase in the total market value of goods and services that are being produced in the country. So if we have got our GDP increases from one year to the other, there is economic growth. So that is always obviously going to be enhanced if the firms increase their production capacities. So they can only increase their production capacities if they get assistance from the government through subsidies. So basically, this is what we have. So how do subsidies? So they contribute in such a way. So we have some points that we have, answer section that are explaining on that. Subsidies on production contribute by helping firms lower their cost of production. The next one, making it possible for firms to increase their output and ensuring high labor productivity will occur as well as best quality products at lower cost. Then enabling firms to offer their products at a lower market since goods and services will be offered at a lower price. So obviously, if the cost of production is reduced by subsidies, obviously the final price is also going to be reduced. So it's going to be beneficial also from the point of view of the consumers that are buying those goods. So this is what we have on question 2, and then we try to move on to the next question. That is our question 3. So moving on to our question 3, it says 40. It says 40 marks, and it requires you to spend on average 30 minutes on that question. So our question reads: answer the following questions. 3.1.1. Name 2 examples of primary sector activities. We know that the primary sector it includes any industry involved in the extraction, in production of raw materials such as farming, fishing, forestry, and mining. So those are the activities that we have taking place in the private sector of farming, fishing, forestry, mining. So we have them listed in our answer section, whereby we have got mining, forestry, and fishing. So moving on to the next question. Why is communication infrastructure increasingly becoming important for today's economies? So communication infrastructure basically is a set of tools, techniques, and principles that provide the foundation for the effective transfer of information between people. So that is communication infrastructure. So why is it increasingly becoming important for today's economy? You'd see that is because of the growth of services that are offered online, that is the e-commerce through cell phones and computers, which requires advancement of communication infrastructure. So that is the reason that we have. And move on to the next part of our question, which is now saying that the chart below and answer the questions that follow. So you're given a chart that you get given there that you need to just to browse through. So as we go down, you're able to see that beneath that now, we have a question that we have, it is saying, name one example of personal service with 1 mark. Example of personal service that we have, we can have medical services as a personal service, financial services as a personal service. So moving on to the next question, which industry deals with the extraction of raw materials in the chart above? Which does the extraction of raw materials? But obviously, this is mining. Mining is the one that does extraction of raw materials. So we have mining is the correct response. So move on to the next question. Describe the term tertiary sector. Describe the term tertiary sector. So tertiary sector is the part of the economy that deals with the provision of services. So the one that deals with the provision of services is tertiary sector. So moving on to the next question. What impact does the development of technology have on the finance industry? So you see that technology and the finance industry is very important as we look at the banking sector. Banking sector is part of the finance industry. There is a lot of technology that is needed in terms of banking, mobile banking, and there are many transactions that are done online. So it becomes of paramount importance. So we go to our answer section, we see that it makes the finance industry grow since it provides many varied methods of banking, such as mobile banking through a cell phone or laptop online. So that is the response that we have. Then moving on to the next one. Why is the manufacturing industry mostly important for the country to achieve economic growth? So manufacturing industry is the one that produces the goods. And economic growth is the increase in the market value of those goods that we have in the country. So basically, it's very important because it's the one that determines economic growth. If manufacturing industry increases its economic activities, we are going to see that there will be economic growth. But if there's a reduction in the activities in manufacturing industry, we are not going to see economic growth being there. So basically, this is what we have. So we have now 3.2.5 explaining that why we have the manufacturing industry being important to achieve economic growth. So we are saying it is the industry that can produce a wide variety of finished and intermediate goods which could contribute to economic growth. So this is the first point that we have. Then our second point, it can help the country import less and export more goods. Then by exporting more products, the country would earn income which would be in foreign exchange. So those are some of the positives. Then the industry makes it possible for consumers to have choice and may lead to increased spending. Then I will move on to the next part of our question, which is now 3.3. Study the extract below and answer the question that follows. So we're given an extract of construction in South Africa, which you just need to browse through. So beneath that, the first question is saying, name the company that is responsible for energy supply in South Africa. Then we move on to the next question, 3.3.2. In which sector of the economy does the construction industry belong? So obviously, we need to know which sector does the construction industry belong. So we know that this is the secondary sector. Because in the construction industry, there is the issue of, for example, building houses. So we are converting something into a finished product. For example, the house that has been built. So we have a secondary sector. So moving on to the next part, describe the term infrastructure. Describe the term infrastructure, and you see that the explanation of infrastructure that we have is infrastructure refers to basic facilities, services, and installations that are used for the functioning of the economy. So that is a description that we have in terms of infrastructure. Then we move on to the next part, which is now saying, explain the importance of having sufficient agricultural production. You know that agricultural production is the primary production that we have in the country. So whatever is going to be produced in the agricultural sector is going to be used in many sectors in the economy. So very important it is. So if you go to an explanation that we have, it's saying it's important in order to ensure food security, country will be in a position to reduce agricultural imports. So we have import substitution whenever we increase agricultural production. So basically it becomes an advantage. So this is what we have on 3.3.4, 3.3.5. How can the lack of infrastructure affect the economy? Obviously, it's not going to attract investors, for example. Infrastructure goes on and explains the road networks that we have in the country, transport networks. If we don't have good transport networks in the country, obviously it doesn't attract investors. So that can also be a point. So it makes doing business difficult and costly. That hinders economic growth. The economy of a country may lose investment because investors may find a country that lacks infrastructure unattractive, and then the country may also find itself left behind in terms of development generally. So those are some of the points that we can include there. So moving on to the next question, it is discuss the importance of primary sector. What is the importance of the primary sector? But we have defined the primary sector as it includes any industry involved in the extraction and production of raw materials such as farming, fishing, forestry, and mining. So what is its importance? We have that also articulated in our answer section. Primary sector provides raw materials for the production of all goods we consume, and then it is the sector where a wide variety of crops and animals are produced to make food such as maize, vegetables, sugar, meat, etc. Most people, that's another point. Most people who are skilled find employment in the primary sector. So these are some of the points. If you go back to our question, you see that our question has got 8 marks, so it requires only 4 points. So you can just pick 4 points from the answers that we have. And we go to 3.5. How does the transport industry contribute to the economy? Very important because it's the one that carries, that transports the workers to work and back, and also the transportation of final goods to markets. So, these are the importances of transport networks. The first one is saying the transport industry plays a key role of making markets accessible to buyers and sellers by distributing goods to retail shops. And then it creates job opportunities that require semi-skilled labor. So it also creates jobs. Then it makes it possible for the country to export and import goods and services. Workers use transport to travel to work, and business people also use it to travel for meetings. Remember, every sector that we have or every industry that we have is a source of revenue for the government. So this is what we have on question 3, and obviously our next question will be our question 4. So moving on to our section C, whereby we are going to have our essay questions. It is only one question should be answered from this question. So we have one question that we have to answer, but this one question obviously we are going to choose from 2 questions. Then we've got the structure of the essay that we need to follow, whereby we are going to have the introduction. Finally, we are supposed to conclude, conclusion. So this is what we have, and we take note of the allocation of marks in terms of introduction down to our conclusion. Then we have a total of 40 marks that we have on our essay. So moving on to the first part of our question, which is the question 4 on the essay part, 40 marks. It requires us to spend 40 minutes. Discuss in detail the characteristics of an entrepreneur with 26 marks, and then analyze the causes of lack of SMME, that is development in South Africa, with 10 marks. So we're going to start on the first part, whereby we're going to discuss in detail the characteristics of an entrepreneur. So we are only going to take note of the main body. We're going to give responses of the main body. Of course, the introduction and the conclusion. We have the requirements that we have there. That is, for example, the introduction. You just have to look for an economic term that we have in the question that you can define. For example, we've got an entrepreneur. You can just briefly describe what is an entrepreneur in your introduction, and then you move on to your main body, whereby in this case we are discussing the characteristics of an entrepreneur. So I want to say that the first characteristics that we have is the issue of combining the factors of production. An entrepreneur has to be have the ability to combine the factors of production. That's one of the main characteristics. So we are saying the entrepreneur combines the factors of production to goods and services to satisfy the needs and wants of consumers. So obviously, for the goods and services to be produced or to be sold, there should be a combination of the factors of production. So this is what we have. So in other words, we are saying entrepreneurs need to source enough capital, natural resources, and skilled labor at the right time and in the right time and place and the right quantities. So these are basically the factors of production in terms of our capital, natural resources, our skilled labor. Then they should be also able to demonstrate initiative. That is, entrepreneurs take the initiative to start a business. You should be someone who is having the ability or be able to start your own way of doing things. That is starting an initiative and also being creative in your way that you are going to do your things. So the second point is saying they come up with the new business ideas to make a profit in the market. So basically, that's what we have. So we have other explanations that are enhancing the demonstration of initiatives. Then, so basically, we are saying this is the first characteristic that we have. And obviously, this is going to be the second characteristic that we have. And taking risks also is another characteristic. Remember, operating a business is taking a risk because it's either you make a profit or a loss. So you should be able to take a risk. So that becomes one of the characteristics of an entrepreneur. In a market economy, the entrepreneur is the person who takes the risk. The entrepreneur is responsible for all the losses if the business idea fails or if the business goes bankrupt. So you should be prepared for the negatives that you might be also be in a position to make a loss, which is going to be a negative position. So be prepared for that. Then you should be able to make decisions again. Entrepreneurs makes decisions on what to produce, where to set up the business, and for whom to produce. So those are some of the decisions that are made by the entrepreneur, which also describes an entrepreneur, someone who's able to make decisions. So I'll go to the next part. We have got having a strong to succeed. So we are saying having a strong drive to succeed, an explanation that we have reached. Entrepreneurs constantly assess and set high standards for themselves. So setting high standards is you want to go above. The next characteristic is that you have good leadership and management abilities. So you should be able to lead and manage. Leading, basically, you should be able to give directions to all the workers that you are having at your business. And also, we should have management abilities, being now able to do the right thing as the business is now operating. So basically, the first point is saying successful entrepreneurs have good management skills of planning, organizing, leading, and directing, coordinating, and controlling. Those are some of the management skills. They are skilled in decision making and problem solving. So that's what we have on the sixth characteristic that we have of an entrepreneur. Then we move on and try to see in terms of the additional part that we have, which reads, analyze the causes of lack of SMME development in South Africa. So the small enterprises, what are the causes of development in South Africa is our additional part. So we are going to see that this is going to be our additional part. So obviously, it's going to start from shortage of capital for small businesses. Those are some of the challenges that they face. They do not have the funding so that they can be able to operate their business at full capacity. So most people who would like to start a business or expand an existing one or are unable to access capital from banks because they do not have security. So obviously it becomes a challenge. And the next point is lack of skills and knowledge to manage the business. So it might be lack of skills and knowledge to manage the business. So obviously they need training so that they are abreast with the skills that are required to operate a business. So this makes it difficult for most entrepreneurs to grow their business, and as a result, most startups just fail in the infant stage. Infant stage, that is, as they start to operate, then they fail. Then this is one way. But the third point is saying too many government regulations. So government regulations also acts as a blockage to small businesses. So it becomes a challenge. So a business environment that has too many regulations makes it difficult for businesses to operate and hinders innovation. So basically, this is what we have. The high cost of running the business, that is infrastructure services such as electricity, is costly, and its availability it's unreliable, and that makes running the business expensive. So high cost of running a business, and depending now with the economic environment that we have in that country, it might negatively affect the operations of those small businesses. And lastly, unwillingness to take risks. There is a general unwillingness to bear risk of starting new small businesses, new small business enterprise by new entrepreneurs. So the unwillingness to take risks and just being afraid of a fear of the unknown, that you don't know what is going to happen if you operate that business, can be also a challenge.